Opening our list of the 25 worst games on the PC is A Game of Thrones, Genesis. This is not a direct tie-in to HBO's fantasy epic. In fact, it's a terrible RTS adaptation of George R.R. Martin's work of art. The timeline runs 1,000 years throughout the history of Westeros, but be warned, the characters and atmosphere aren't the same compared to the stuff we've known. Even the Steam reviews are calling it an utter waste of time. So if you're a fan of the series and RTS games, move on. It has a play score of 5.07. Number 24 is Painkiller Resurrection. The worst Painkiller game in all of existence. Play as a dead man coming back to life after a horrific C4 explosion that left him in a state of purgatory. That's all you need to know about it, since the game is riddled with progression-breaking bugs and technical letdowns. Common complaints include abnormal frame rates, unresponsive physics, and a shitload of unnecessary story issues. It has a play score of 5. Number 23 is The Walking Dead: Survival Instinct. Just when we thought we can finally find out the origin stories of our favorite Dixon brothers, this video game adaptation of AMC's popular zombie series should stay dead. It's infected with the same problems like most of these games have. Terrible first-person gameplay, silly narrative, and missions that feel more brain-dead than The Walkers. It's packed with fillers after fillers, making you feel sad for Merle and Daryl. It has a play score of 4.96. Number 22 is Sword of the Stars 2: Lords of Winter. A science fiction strategy game that ultimately led the fans of the original to a wallowing disappointment. Although it featured great add-ons and a new powerful race, it was bogged down by its unintuitive UI, game-breaking bugs, and a terrible AI. For a game with such promise, it was totally squandered due to its unpolished mechanics. Such a shame. If you want to get a good dose of SOTS, we recommend you play the first game instead. It has a play score of 4.96. Number 21 is Aliens: Colonial Marines. Thank God Alien Isolation came after this unmitigated disaster. Gearbox Entertainment's take on Ridley Scott's science fiction horror. The Xeno infestation runs rampant throughout the vastness of space. Story-wise, it's a mess. As part of the Alien canon, it shows no connection to the movies at all. It strays away too far from their signature survival elements on space. It's a disappointing Alien entry that belongs to a deserted planet somewhere. It has a play score of 4.95. Number 20 is War of the Roses. A promising hack-and-slash game, Fat Shark's medieval game was inspired by the same historic moment that happened during 15th century England. It was widely respected, but its apparent shutdown way back February 2017 caused the community to give up, and it lost its entire player base ever since. May it rest in peace. This game has a play score of 4.88. Number 19 is Dark. Picture Dishonored with actual dishonor. That would be Dark. This stealth action game takes you to the shoes of a vampire with unpolished fangs and mediocre content. It literally and figuratively sucks due to its bad animations, broken physics, and unresponsive stealth controls for a stealth game. Can you imagine that? Aside from that, its terrible voice acting and forgettable characters make it unworthy of your time. It's an abomination and it receives a play score of 4.85. Number 18 is Command & Conquer 4: Tiberian Twilight. Back then, Command & Conquer was the best. Amassing your troops and leading them to the field of battle was so glorifying. Match them up with your favorite heroes and you're on a roll. Unfortunately, EA's touch made the game so unstrategic, it lost all its key elements for a CNC game. Upon its release, it was the ultimate disappointment of its career, and it disappointed so many fans. Talk about ruining your childhood. It has a play score of 4.80. Number 17 is Gettysburg: Armored Warfare. A game that no longer exists on the Steam database. Its cause of death is probably caused by the game's utter disappointment. For an RTS game, it lacks the qualities of similar games like Creative Assembly's Total War series. It's unpolished, repetitive, and it really doesn't last that long. It's such a shame since it offers a very interesting setting where past meets future. It has a play score of 4.76. Number 16 is Postal 3. While it looks really fun to play, Postal 3 is garbage. It retains the same quality trash from their predecessors with no absolute regard to gameplay and story. It's like stepping inside the mind of a psychotic person if they were to develop a video game idea. It's a black comedy game, and its widespread popularity due to the streamers made the game available to new audiences. Just don't take this game seriously. It has a play score of 4.74. Number 15 is Alone in the Dark, Illumination. Has there ever been a decent Lovecraftian game? Folks at Atari failed to escape its double-edged undertow. Illumination is the sixth and possibly the worst entry of all the Alone in the Dark games. It's broken, glitchy, and totally not worth your time even with its co-op mode. It's like a bad version of Left 4 Dead and Killing Floor. For a horror game, it has a few essential scares, but it's buried underneath its numerous issues. It has a play score of 4.48. Number 14 is Deus Ex: The Fall. It's hard to believe that Eidos made a terrible Deus Ex game. For its mobile counterpart, it's doing well, but in its PC version, it was marred with technical issues such as the lack of a jump button, inability to remap controls, and many more UI nightmares. It was a wasted opportunity to maximize the power of the PC, calling it one of the worst PC ports ever made. It has a play score of 4.40. Number 13 is Cities XXL. Before the acclaimed Cities Skylines came out, we had Cities XXL. It was a bigger architectural version of the previous Cities XL game, but with one more X. Other than some much needed performance boosts and an enhanced UI, it didn't really improve much on the already underwhelming previous title to justify its expensive price tag. If anything, it only seemed to make it worse, with even more performance issues that begged to be fixed. If only it was released as a free patch. It has a play score of 4.36. Number 12 is Deep Black Reloaded. Aw man. This third-person shooter borrows elements from popular cover-based action games like Mass Effect and Gears of War. But apparently, just like the others on this list, it's utter garbage. Most players can't even play the game due to its startup issues. It crashes from time to time. For those who miraculously made it to the main menu, expect this game to black out after 10 minutes. It's literally unplayable, and it receives a play score of 4.34. Number 11 is Infestation: Survivor Stories. Originally named War Z in its first release, it was later changed because of trademark issues with the movie World War Z. This god-awful infested zombie game has the necessary formulas for players to engage in a post-apocalyptic survival world. However, the amount of developer mistakes and a bad usage of microtransaction features makes this game not worth the bite. It has a play score of 4.29. Number 10 is X Rebirth. Powered by the words trade, fight, build, think. This sixth entry to the popular X franchise may have the mechanics, but it lacks proper execution. This space trading encompasses frustrating controls, terrible dialogue, taxing, buying, and selling, and so much more, making it unworthy of exploration. Despite its hate, the game is applauded for its amazing visuals. Then again, that's all there is. It's a voyage not worth treading. It has a play score of 4.29. Number 9 is Stronghold 3. Firefly Studios' real-time strategy was a wellspring of potential. Set 10 years after the original story, it had some good moments. But for a game that boasts a balanced economic simulator, it's a little hard to manage. The workers are always going at a snail's pace, and for a building game, the maps are often constricting. That's if you ever get to that part. With a tutorial that seems to leave you out of the most basic base building methods, it's a sour disappointment, and it has a play score of 4.26. Number 8 is RollerCoaster Tycoon World. Atari's fourth installment of their theme park construction and management series, it took its players on a metaphorical roller coaster ride, but it was anything but good. Taking its roots from way back in the late 90s, nobody expected it to bomb this badly. Reportedly rushed out to digital shelves, Tycoon World took us into theme parks of disaster, with awkward placement mechanics, slow loading screens, and yes, a whole lot of bugs. Might as well bring the crowds to Planet Coaster. RollerCoaster Tycoon World receives a play score of 4.15. Number 7 is Rambo the video game. Rambo hasn't only conquered the perilous jungles of Vietnam, but he also seemed to dominate every one of our worst game lists. From the PS3, Xbox 360, And now, the PC. Take on the shoes of John Rambo as he explores the Oriental forestry in Taeyeon's failure of a shooter. Other than the fact arcade rail shooting has been out of fashion for a few decades now, it also has some recycled voice acting and deplorable models that would offend any fan of peak Sylvester Stallone. It has a play score of 4.11. Number 6 is Ride to Hell: Retribution. One of the biggest contenders for the worst game contest. It's the room of video games. It's so bad it's almost good. And it's a game to recommend if only you were to watch it crash and burn. Explore the lives of plains bikers in the 60s and take a dive into video game oblivion with its infinite number of tears, bugs, and glitches. And of course, there's also the dumpster audio, disposable characters, broken gameplay, and the ruefully awkward clothed sex scenes. It's so cringeworthy, it's almost worth playing. It has a play score of 4.1. Number 5 is Sacred 3. This action-adventure RPG provides an isometric taste similar to the Diablo franchise. However, the overused button clicking is not enough for players to feel engaged. Its boring and linear style deludes players into thinking they're playing a game with a lot of cool loot to collect. Sadly, it's not. With only 4 characters to choose from and a limited set of customizations, it fell short of expectations. Playing it alone is tedious enough, but with friends, maybe the hack and slash elements will turn out well. It gets a play score of 3.99. Number 4 is Takedown: Red Sabre. This tactical first-person shooter is a black mark in the history of all Kickstarter campaigns. It started off as a promising venture, being touted as a spiritual successor to Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six and the beloved SWAT series. What the backers got, however, was an unfinished disaster, riddled with bugs, glitches, weak multiplayer offerings, and broken AI. As realistic as the game was, it couldn't hold a finger to its technical mishaps. We're better off forgetting this one. It has a play score of 3.97. Number 3 is Raven's Cry. Topware's pirate-themed action-adventure is everything you loved about Assassin's Creed Black Flag, except it was turned into an unrecognizable monster of its former self. Well, that's a bit much considering their naval battles were actually pretty enjoyable. Then again, they could mess everything up and we'd still eat it up because damn it, the pirate life is for me! Sail off into a storm of bad voice acting, game-breaking crashes, and general mediocrity. It's time to get the captain on the plank. It receives a play score of 3.87. Number 2 is Umbrella Corps. While it was a little surprising for one of Japan's premier video game studios, it's not the first time Capcom took a dip in the pool of terrible choices. But the second attempt at breaking into the online shooter market definitely takes the cake. As a multiplayer tactical shooter based on the Resident Evil universe, it wasn't the poster boy for original ideas. But with no real plot, unbalanced matches, clunky controls, and a community that's more dead than the zombies it boasts, there's just no rising back from that. It has a play score of 3.77. And the worst game on the PC is FlatOut 3: Chaos and Destruction. That's right, Team 6's third installment of their FlatOut series is still the definitive experience in video game notoriety. Released in 2011, no game in more than 5 years has since managed to dethrone the racing kings of sleaze. With their subtitle prophesizing their demise, FlatOut 3 was a great mess of shoddy physics, awful controls, and unbearable AI that it's hard to find any sort of redeeming feature. A landmark case of so bad it's not even funny, it receives a play score of 2.64. You may get these games right now by clicking the links below.